Jason Smith is the operations manager for the North Central Texas Emergency Communications District, which services approximately 40 different PSAPs in the North Texas region. Jason also serves as the state coordinator for T.E.R.T, a highly skilled cadre of telecommunicators who assist with other agencies when there are natural disasters. We've asked Jason on to talk about these things. This is Lifeline. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate to have you on Lifeline and to kind of pick your brain about all these interesting things that you do. Because not only are you sort of you know, a Council of Governments COG coordinator, but also the T.E.R.T program, which is really neat.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm very happy to have received the invitation and to be here with y'all this morning.
Well, as you know, I told you before we went on, I kind of stalked you, so I'm going to go back over all of those things that I learned. So, what I found interesting is not only are you like a cog like what we have here in Austin, but for someone who doesn't know or maybe didn't see that episode, what you do and the Council of Governments, what break that down for us.
So the Council of Governments, as far as the number one communications department goes, or the number one district, is we are identified as I guess you could say, a number one authority. We provide the number one services, the number one computer, or excuse me, call handling equipment for 40 PSAPs or ECCs, whatever we want to call them today, that surround the Dallas Fort Worth area. We do have five municipalities in Dallas County, but that's it. Tarrant and Denton County have their own authority that handles those PSAPs within their jurisdiction. But yeah, we provide outside of number one services, public education and community engagement, number one training for all the telecommunicators in our service area, communications to include written and visual media, and we do monitoring and compliance where an individual goes out quarterly to each of our PSAPs or ECCs and provide or conducts what we call a site visit to make sure they're okay, everything's working properly with the equipment, and in compliance with our ILA and any other uh, local or national standards in place. We also provide GIS services with our 911 mapping. Um, and our GIS team works diligently with county coordinators to ensure that the address points are updated. So when citizens call 911, that that call is plotting correctly.
40 PSAPs,
Yes, 40.
40 whole PSAPs.
Yes, we have roughly about 10,000 square miles, I believe, is our jurisdiction. So from one end to the other, it could take close to 3 hours driving, and that's with no traffic in the Dallas Fort Worth area. Our furthest away is about an hour and 45 minutes for most staff. Some other staff can get there in, an hour, depending on if DPS is not active at the time on the roads.
Depending
We
on
won't
how
tell
they're
anybody.
driving, if they're yeah.
But yes,
Wow. So how
we
many telecommunicators would you say that is? Yes, roughly.
so we roughly predict around 600. We've always used that number, especially for Telecommunicator Appreciation Week, because we purchase a special gift to distribute each year. So we always aim for that number, but it could range anywhere from the low 500s to the high 500s, give or take. The staffing crisis definitely impacted a lot of our agencies for a while, and we had very low numbers, the lowest numbers we ever had, which was a low 500. So
Wow.
our numbers have slowly been increasing back up. So the hiring and the retention have been very fortunate for all of our agencies.
That was going to be a question I was going to say because we just did an episode not too long ago about recovering, and coming out of COVID because
Mm.
everyone around us, I didn't hear anybody say that they had full staff during all of that. None that I am aware of. If they did, kudos to them. But everybody was just basically devastated.
Yes. Yeah, when one of our agencies say I'm fully staffed, it's like you don't say the Q word in dispatch, so don't project it out there.
Yes.
So, but it's great to hear, but, one month they'll say, "We're fully staffed." The next month, they could say, "I'm down by 5 now." So it's
What
definitely the retention
it
of
is
key.
a thing. I think it's a universal thing in this profession. We just people come in and if they love it, they absolutely love it and they stay, but if they find that they do not love it, they
Mhm.
might hang for a little bit and
Yeah,
move on.
yeah. Oh, it's all about that retention now.
Yeah, and I'm a lifer and so is Gary. Go ahead, Gary, you were gonna say
You
something?
know, well, it is good to see that it's not just our agency or our region that is having sort of the staffing issues, um, and like it's a endemic problem throughout, I think, the entire industry, especially after COVID. So that's one of the cool things I think about Lifeline is you might be listening to this in Kalamazoo and think, man, my center's not doing really well because we're only at 60% staffing. But no, that's how it is across the entire industry. You're not alone. We're all kind of going through that together. And
Exactly.
I am glad to hear that, uh, much like the Central Texas area, like the North Texas area is starting to kind of recover and add some additional bodies and personnel because uh, it got a little tight there for us at least. I'm not gonna lie.
It did, definitely. We had agencies that were affected by the pandemic too, where they were just down to 4, maybe even 3, unfortunately. It's just, it was definitely an experience, with the pandemic and how it affected 911 and public safety in general.
Mhm.
But the recovery process, since then has, I guess you could say, good because, staffing at levels are building back up. And everything. So, but yes, this is a nationwide crisis, I guess you could say, with
Yeah,
staffing.
and I'm curious, but I'm kind of all over the place, but we mentioned COVID, and I didn't think about how COVID would have affected a council of governments, like how we know what it did to the centers because staffing, that was our big thing. And we had to, the 6 feet and the masks and the things. But how, if at all, did that impact what you did during that time?
So um, the Council of Governments acted, our executive director, and we followed what was coming down from the federal government and everything. And we transitioned into 100% remote work. We had remote policies in place with the capability here and there, but we transitioned fully. I think some other districts and some other cogs throughout were doing a combination of office and remote there for a while, but it was for an extensive period of time in 2020 that we worked remotely, but our main focus was to ensure that all of our agencies or our ECCs were okay, checking on them
Mhm.
periodically, what services we could provide, what could we do if possible, anything and everything that NCT 911 could do to help all of our agencies in need or ECCs in need.
That is amazing. 100% remote. I cannot imagine what
It
that
was a
was
transition,
like.
yes, but it introduced us to new ways of communicating. Like you know, we had launched Microsoft Teams in, I think, late night 2019, so we got very proficient in utilizing Microsoft Teams and everything. And then in 21, we slowly started transitioning back to the office, as, the nation slowly started to recover and everybody was going back to office more. And then we working the council of governments, the executive director, working with all the directors, and then what protocols were in place from the federal side. Just going back into that office work life
Yeah.
and the slow transition. My director started with the leadership team, which I'm a member of, and then we gradually started introducing staff back in based on recommendations and requests. from the COG, and then we went back into a more permanent office setting. I believe it was late 21.
Oh,
You
wow.
know,
Okay.
it was a blur. Everything's a blur with that time. But
Yeah.
we've now transitioned into a hybrid schedule of office and remote. Um, my director, working with the leadership team, we dedicated at least one day each week that requires all of staff to be in office that promotes collaboration and working
Oh,
together. So the
yeah.
team is still 100% operational and aware of everything. But it's worked out perfectly and everything since that time, since that transition period, and it still works perfectly today. But I mean, we still
Amazing.
have the option. We could go into the office at any time. We are not told, no, you can't be in there this day. Office
Okay.
is the way of life. Remote is the option if and when needed.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So
It,
go ahead, Gary.
no, I was gonna say um, it's not just like an on-off switch with getting personnel back. Like when you lose 30-40% of your staff, it's not like you can just like they leave immediately or in a very quick time, but it takes years and years to start building up that knowledge, that experience. So it takes a long time to recover from those kind of calamities, and it's good to see that you guys are being proactive about that in
Yes.
terms of getting more people back in, getting back into the office, getting back to normal. Because it was just the first half of the 2020s has just been a calamity.
A very big calamity, yes. But I mean, it's also an educational experience, a learning experience. You get to
Yeah.
see just how structured your organization is and you know, coinciding with TERT, it allows for the opportunity to see how well your program is, but always the opportunity for what we call mitigation to enhance the quality of your program and
Yes.
and everything. So it was a hard transition. Well, when I say hard transition, it was accommodating to working from home full time, because
Hmm.
most of the rest of the nation was as well. And finding out, things like DoorDash and Instacart, those types of services. And I'm like, because I don't know about y'all, but I don't like grocery shopping much. But if somebody wants to do it and I can tip them to do it, by all means.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And, those who, well, in grocery shopping and going and picking it up, you don't have to go in the store or you
Mhm.
can sit home. And now DoorDash and Uber Eats and all the places, they love us because
Mhm.
they're constantly in and out of the center all day and most of the night.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh yeah.
amazing.
It is.
So you mentioned TERT because that was the thing once I got your information from Pam, who is all knowing and totally amazing.
Shout out, Pam. Shout out.
Yes, that was the thing I saw TERT and I went, oh, I know what that is, or I have an idea of what that is. That's like an army of telecommunicators that go out and rescue the whole world when it goes to falling apart and stuff. So, right?
I wouldn't call it an army, but I would call it
Okay.
and I wouldn't even use the word special, but I would say um, a unique group of experienced, trained number one telecommunicators that can go and assist those in a time of need.
So these people, from what I understand, they can be requested or required or asked to go anywhere in the state, and they may encounter in this PSAP a system that they are not accustomed to. How do they handle that? How do you work a phone that you've never seen?
So one of the things that we try to obtain in the what we call the pre-deployment phase of a TERT deployment is any and all information from the requesting PSAP or ECC to include CAD, 911 radio. Those are the top three. And then if they have any special training material that they can provide in advance, we ask for that as well. But generally, like say after a hurricane, systems and services are very limited, so
Mhm.
we may not be able to obtain that information. But if we can at least get the name of the equipment, there is a strong possibility that somebody that would be deploying is aware of it or has heard of it or used it in the past and has that knowledge. But what happens and what is requested, and especially in the first 24 hours once the team has arrived, is training on CAD. How do you enter calls into the CAD system? The radio, the 911. How do you answer? How do you transfer? How do you release,
Okay.
etc. But one thing I will give a quick shout out to is more and more agencies, as the years have progressed since the program started, are requesting agencies to bring their own headsets because it seems like headsets are more universal now than they used to be.
Mhm.
So bringing your headset is a requirement if your agency has headsets.
Interesting. I would never have thought about a headset, but of course, if the agency or the PSAP is underwater or in the thick of it, they may not even know where their extra headsets are, depending on what the circumstances are. I did not think of that. So they get basically a crash course,
Mhm. They
if at
do.
all possible.
Yes, and it is actually a requirement that a resident 911 telecommunicator stays with the TERT team at all times. That resident TC acts as the resource to ensure that local policies, procedures are being met, serve as that resource of what units to send where, jurisdictional maps, fire department maps, etc. So, and to ensure that if our TERT members forget how to do something, they can quickly, jump in and handle it or say, oh, remember, it's this short key of that. So a resident telecommunicator has to be with our TERT teams.
So, like TERT, I uh, suppose is an acronym for something.
Yes, it stands for Telecommunicator Emergency Response Task Force.
Okay.
Nice.
TERT has been an acronym that's been around in the industry for many years. It is assist or TERT is a response program, and there's a little bit of history behind it, how it came to be.
Yes, please.
Hurricane Katrina was the eye opener, I guess you could say. What happened in '05 with Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, that resources for 911 needed to be established. There were already certain programs in existence long before Rita. Florida, for instance, has had a similar program in place for 911 resources to be included as a state response program since 1992, 93, following Hurricane Andrew. So Florida has led the way for
Definitely.
many years, and we have close connections with Florida TERT, and they have been a valuable resource for many years to help uh, set place or set. I wouldn't say, yeah, set standards in place per se
Mhm.
to establish TERT programs. Because in 2005, APCO and NINA on the national level created the National Joint TERT Initiative Committee. And it is a committee comprised of subject matter experts for first aid, mutual response, etc., that came together to establish what we call an American National Institute standards document, ANSI standard or ANI standard. I forget how you pronounce it, but we call it the TERT Bible. It is everything that a
Nice.
state would need in order to create a program from scratch to include requirements to become a TERT member, training standards, packing, administrative duties and responsibilities, and such like that. So that document has been floating around since 2009. It's gone through some revisions. In fact, its last revision was just recently. There was a working group that came together to review it, and it's almost there, ready for approval. And once it's released, this updated version, seeing a draft of it, there are going to be changes coming for the our state program because of what they've included. It's just a way to keep the programs established, but also enhance them in a way.
Hmm. So I guess for me, like I'm picturing like a an operations manager at a call center when a hurricane or something's coming. They pick up
Mhm.
this red phone and they're like, "Get me the T.E.R.T team," and then like a bunch of telecommunicators get on this, big semi that's just full of telecommunications equipment and drive out there. But
Yes,
that's probably
yes,
not how it is, right?
Well, yeah, that's a good vision, yes, and for the most
that's
part, it could
exactly
be.
what I was thinking. We're here, Gary. Yeah.
So, let me give a little overview of how Texas T.E.R.T was established. Again, in 2005, the need was there. I mean, I believe it was actually in 2001 or maybe 2003, the first um, Texas T.E.R.T committee was established to review the possibilities and such. In 2005, the need definitely was there. My predecessor, actually, between 2006 and 8, started working on the process to create the program based on what little was already established. And I have to say that with collaboration with Texas DPS is what made this happen. We had a great representative at Texas DPS at the time that was, or I guess you could call him our T.E.R.T champion that helped get the program set and identified and established. So we have been going strong since '07, '08. We were actually, I believe, the fourth state in the nation in 2007 or 8 to officially launch the T.E.R.T program. And our collaboration with Texas DPS and also with Texas APCO, Texas NENA, and then gradually Texas Division of Emergency Management has been a blessing to keep our program live and going, the need, the want,
Yeah.
um, and demonstrating how valuable the program still is and everything. It was in, I believe, 19 or 20 when the state program moved from under Texas DPS to TDM, and we fall under now the what we call the CCG, the Communications Coordination Group, which is under Texas
Okay.
Division of Emergency Management, and we are identified as a true first response state program. That collaboration, that partnership, and that support from the state as well as the state chapters throughout all these years has been a blessing to keep us going and to keep us active and be recognized as, um, I wouldn't say one of the best, but one of the
You can say it. I'll say it.
Yeah.
One of the best.
I don't want it to sound conceited.
No, no. You're
To
confident.
be one of the most recognized, one of the most recognized, in the nation.
I love
Um,
that. Humble but confident. That's how you do that.
yes,
Humble but
yes,
confident. It's okay.
yes. So the steps in order to activate TERT at the local level starts with the communications supervisor or manager. He or she will work with their local emergency management coordinator to fill out what is called a STAR request, State of Texas Authorization Request Form. That is what is needed to officially activate TERT. So it's multiple steps and how it works. So it starts at the local level, filling out the local emergency management coordinator will start filling it out. It's then routed to the regional level, which is called a DDC, District Disaster Chair. He or she will then take the information, process it, and then route it up to the State Operations Center in Austin, where the unit chief over the CCG will then take the information and start sending it to me. And it with the partnership that we've had in place all these years, he can see in advance as it's coming up the steps. So he gives me a heads up, so I can start thinking of what to do, the process, and start getting standby notifications ready and an idea of where we may be deploying, how many members might be needed. And then once he gets it and sends it to me, then we start the official notification process to get TERT members activated, get their permission first from their local administrators. They have to have permission from their chief
That
or their
was that
or
was gonna be my that in my head, I'm thinking, okay, that all sounds amazing and all these wheels are turning. But what happens, say I'm a T.E.R.T member, I just call up my agent and say, you know what, I've been activated. I'm out. That
well,
that's not how it works.
yeah. So there is an application process. and we've deployed 5 times since 2008, 2 in-state, 3 out-of-state. Our 2012 deployment was to assist Louisiana following Hurricane Isaac. And back in the day, after someone went through T.E.R.T training, they were immediately put into the T.E.R.T database as an active member. When Louisiana started communicating with us and we started assembling our teams, I believe we had up to 49 T.E.R.T members that said, sign me up, put me on the standby list. After the official paperwork came in and we started doing the official, all right, we're deploying, we need to know who can go, we went from 49 to 8
Oh, wow.
because chiefs and sheriffs and administrators did not know that their telecommunicators were a part of this. So mitigation from that deployment was to implement an application process to where interested members, after they take the T.E.R.T Basic Awareness class, fill it out. It includes information that's documented in the ANSI standard as far as years of service, training that is required, employment. You have to be employed by an agency, and you have to have your TCO license as a 911 telecommunicator in order to join.
Right.
Um, well, caveat to that is in 2017, we opened it up to all types of telecommunicators, whether it be law enforcement under TCO's requirements or police and fire, or excuse me, fire and EMS, as long as you are employed and have whatever credentials or certifications are needed. So just want to put that in there now. It's not just limited to TCO licensed telecommunicators. Anybody in the state of Texas that's a telecommunicator can apply. Yes,
Nice.
so and that application also demonstrates their agency is supporting them because the supervisor has to sign off on that application, and a letter of recommendation
Okay.
is recommended, and everything else. So once that application is received, it's immediately signed off and approved. They receive it, then they go into the database. And that demonstrates that
Nice.
they have agency support.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah. So, because Gary and I are supervisors in our agency, and in my mind, because I know I have it at minimum one, but I think it's up to three that have gone through that class. And I think they might have been in the class that you taught here in May.
Okay.
So I'm thinking in my head before this conversation, what would that look like? They would just call me up and say, "Hey, I gotta go." And here I am pouring over the roster going, okay, we like to call it Tetris,
Yes.
moving bodies around, trying to figure out, okay, who's got this skill set, who's got that skill set, the overtime, all the things. Because as a telecommunicator myself, I can sense the urgency of something like that. I've been, okay, we've got to make sure she or he can go
Right.
because just we right now down south, they just had their own snowmageddon all over again. And what if that were a situation where T.E.R.T were needed? I can see myself going, whatever they need, let's just give it to them. But it's not
Mhm.
that simple. They
So
would
that's
need, okay,
yeah.
wow.
We cannot deploy without the state's approval. Because in most of the time when we deploy, it's the governor has declared or issued what we call a disaster declaration, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when FEMA gets involved,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the reimbursement opportunities come into play. So under the state program, we will not deploy unless TDOM approves us to do it, but that's at the state level. We also have, throughout the years, created or implemented what we call regional T.E.R.T capabilities, which is a way for neighbors helping neighbors in a time of need that may not fit the requirements for a full state deployment, a
Okay.
full state deployment process. Let me rephrase. So we've used regional T.E.R.T methods in the past. And sadly, it's what it's been used for the most is so all of staff can go to a funeral.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
and because of that, and it's those types of deployments are short-lived. They may be for a couple of hours or maybe for a day, versus the
Mm-hmm.
state deployment side of it. it's a minimum of 4 with a maximum of 14 depending on and everything. But
Wow.
and and on regional deployments, I guess we'll call it that, you do not have to be a TERT member to participate. Texas TERT will assist in identifying 911 telecommunicators that can go provide temporary assistance for the affected agency and everything. And
Interesting.
we've done it to help agencies in the past that were affected by active shooter situations,
Yeah.
and and school shootings and such, but even wildfire situations, because this state likes to burn from time to time,
From time to time. Yeah.
and and so we're always trying to reach out and see what Turk can do, either on a regional basis or a statewide basis, so those that are affected can have a moment to breathe.
Right. So remind me, because I'm taking it all in. I know the application process has to be done and to where that person, interested parties agency is supporting them. That's for the state deployment,
Yes.
but regional is that's not required. Anybody, like say someone listening to this and is like, oh my God, sign me up. They don't need their boss's permission.
Well, I mean, on the regional level, it's still one of those if resources are readily available. So I'm thinking like, for instance, the wildfires up in the Panhandle. What was it last year, year before?
Uh-huh.
Uh, it was a need for trying to find local resources, whether they be coming from Lubbock or maybe even from as far as Abilene going up. And then think about like the Bastrop fires back in 2011.
Yeah.
It was affecting locally, so those particular PSAPs or ECCs were being bombarded and probably needed relief. So we could probably pull from or look to see if like Williamson County or Round Rock or Austin or San Antonio, in those areas, if they could maybe move telecommunicators over or have telecommunicators that were readily available to go provide assistance for a day or two and
Right.
whatnot.
Oh,
Possum Kingdom Lake, which is in our jurisdiction out in Palo Pinto County, it tends to catch fire periodically, and so we're always monitoring our PSAPs out there to make sure they're okay, but also the agencies that surround Possum Kingdom if they're getting overwhelmed with calls. So it's just checking in, welfare check, what can we do,
I love
and
that.
how we can get assistance as best we can. So it's I wouldn't say it's based on what happens with the event that determines how we would proceed.
Okay.
Okay,
Wow.
so it's like I guess like an online application. Go to like, do you have a website for that?
Yes, the TERT application, and there's also a contract of commitment that outlines the responsibilities of TERT members. That's all on the Texas TERT website, tx-tert.org.
I'm
Because
so going. As soon as we get off of
Yes.
here, I'm
that's
doing
yeah,
it.
sign me up. I'm ready to go, Chief.
I'm
Wherever you need
Yeah,
me to
all
go.
right.
seriously
But
But yeah,
yeah,
so
it's
happening.
yeah, it's just that just ensures that because there are requirements of TERT members, and so especially during a deployment. So if it's a lengthy deployment, that's what the training's there for. So nobody can ever say, I did not know, or that was not relayed to
Mhm.
me. That's why
Mm,
it's very important that they attend that training first to see. And everybody that teaches TERT is someone that has deployed in the past. So you're getting a subject matter expert that has deployed and has great stories and examples to give to the learning objectives to paint a broader picture versus a paint
Mhm.
by numbers type thing.
Right.
hmm
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think that probably a lot of people aren't really aware of this program. I mean, as Erica said, we've got a handful at our agency, but you've how many? You said you had 5 deployments or 7 deployments since it was begun.
Yeah, 5 deployments. Again, 2 in state. We deployed. Our first official deployment was in 2008 following Hurricane Ike. We sent 14 teams to 3 different locations uh, for about a
Wow.
month and a half. And then our next big deployment was in 2017 following Hurricane Harvey. We
Yeah.
sent 41 TERT members, a total of 9 teams to 5 different locations for that.
Hmm.
And then the
Wow.
rest have been to twice to Louisiana to assist them, and then once to Florida to assist them.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. So especially the out of state, because all this time I hear Texas and I hear Turk in my head. That funny looking, line that outlines the state is the boundary. We don't cross that. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's become more of a reality in previous years because these hurricanes are getting stronger and they're affecting people more often. I mean, if you go back and look at the weather reports from the National Hurricane Center, this year alone, most of the Gulf Coast region was affected by a strong hurricane in some way, shape, and form. I
Yeah,
mean, Florida, 3 this year alone. So
insane.
so it's the collaboration on the national level through NJTI and developing those connections with fellow state coordinators and TERT programs has been beneficial, especially in the Gulf Coast region.
Right.
Alabama TERTs recently created their program, and we got to work or collaborate with them in a deployment last year to North Carolina, Florida, of course, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia all got involved with that. Even Nebraska got involved. And for some states, it was their first official deployment. So more and more states are getting on board to get
Yeah.
TERP going or reestablish their TERP programs that were in existence. So the
And they just
understanding
kind of fell by the wayside.
that fell by the wayside, yeah. Somebody that was very proactive and ran that program for so many years, well, they eventually retired or moved on.
So you're talking about those. That was actually going to be my question when you started naming off the different states. S- Off the top of your head, how many, or at least do you know how many programs are out there like that? Like Turk?
As far as dispatch relief,
Yes, yes. Hmm.
there are a few that are out there. I've heard of a group called Motivations. Gosh, I believe they hire. I don't know much about the program. From what I've heard is they have telecommunicators that travel and provide dispatch relief when needed. And I believe Motivations did send some of their telecommunicators to assist in North Carolina following Hurricane Helene. Outside of TERT itself and maybe Motivations, I don't know of others uh,
That sounds so
assistance
familiar.
systems.
Motivations. That sounds so familiar. I feel like I was introduced to that in at a navigator conference. I was in a class, and of course, everybody's talking about the staffing.
Mhm.
And I think that's where it came up, and I completely forgot about that organization. That's a Nina organization?
I think that's an independent. I don't know if they are
Oh, okay.
associated APCO or NINA. I think they're just an independent organization that
Oh, okay.
collaborates and assists when needed.
Well, help is help when you're up against it, you'll
It
take it.
is. Yes.
Wow. So I'm glad we talked about this because I thought we were just going to talk about, pack your bag and let's go. There's actually a lot of history behind this.
Yes.
Where if you had to say where you thought Turt was headed in like the next, I don't know, 5, 10 years, what would you say? Or what would you like to see in the next 5, maybe 10 years?
Virtual TERT.
Explain.
The
That would be neat.
capability of routing calls through a 911 system that interconnects with another 911 system and being able to route calls hundreds of miles away to an agency not affected by a natural disaster and still being able to process them and dispatch them. And it is
Oh,
something that is coming. We actually saw it, Virginia and South Carolina, and I believe maybe even Tennessee, um, were working to somehow interconnect with North Carolina at the time of after Helene to see what they could do to reroute calls from the affected area. I do know that there are two agencies in the nation that have been working on this for quite some time to make it possible. One agency in South Carolina, one agency in Florida. And I haven't heard yet if they were 100% successful. I know they've been working on it and testing was successful, but there's a huge interest, at least from me,
Yeah.
to see how virtual TERT will play a vital role in the future of TERT deployments. Of course, we'll still need TERT members to deploy to
Sure.
assist those that were affected because not all things would possibly be transferred, like non-emergency calls. And then
Right.
gradually you're gonna think about CAD and radio and those,
Mhm.
interoperability and those capabilities and such, but that is, something that has sparked, within a couple of months that has is going to draw interest, and, I look forward to those possibilities that will be incorporated into a TERT program or just in
Wow.
general in the future.
Yeah.
It's all about next generation 911, and this
Sure.
is one of the things that NG 911 will allow for, especially in any type of disaster.
I was not ready for you to say virtual TERT. I think that is awesome. And because we don't have anything like that with like San Antonio, we at times will test the ability for them to dispatch for us and take calls for us and vice versa. So in my head I kind of was thinking something along those lines, but this is wow.
Yeah.
This would
I
be multiple states away, hundreds and hundreds of miles away to be able to step in and basically for a short time, at least I would imagine, take over their operations to either give them that break or, in the event of a full on natural disaster, take over for an extended period of time.
right. I mean, just
Wow.
the thoughts like here in Texas, a major category 4 or 5 heading towards Houston and Galveston, working in advance with those 911 authorities, we could start routing calls maybe over to Austin or up
Hmm.
to Dallas-Fort Worth, or maybe even as far as maybe Amarillo or El Paso. But
Yeah.
it's all about that back end stuff, that tech stuff that I know very little about, and I have to get a dictionary out just to find out what that meant. I always say I don't talk tech, and every time a
I
new
don't.
acronym is introduced, I'm like, "Okay, more research. What does that mean?"
Exactly. Our tech guy sitting right here in the middle. I'm not that person at all. So you and I are soulmates in that regard. I'm like, yeah, what is that? I need you to, you know, lay terms because I don't know what any of that stuff means. I just want to be able to flip the switch and have it work.
Exactly. Yeah, there's one acronym right now that I've heard multiple times in the past couple of months. It's EIDO. I don't know what it means, but every time I hear it, I automatically think of Old MacDonald Had a Farm.
EIDIO.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
Now I'm gonna have to go figure out what that is, or ask my hubby. He's a tech person, and I'm like, what
okay.
is that? Yeah, that is awesome. Well, unless you have something else, Gary, I don't. I feel
Uh,
like I've asked all the questions, unless, of course, after we hang up, then I'm gonna have like 5 extra questions. Isn't that how it always works?
That's
yeah,
how it
so
always works, yes.
we'll have to have you on again, Jason, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Of course. And any agency that is ever interested in hosting TERT training in their region can reach out to me. I'm always willing to travel. I called it my TERT travels last year. I was from Amarillo down to Lufkin, Arlington, which is where my headquarters is based. I was in Austin, went down to Bear Metro a few times to help them. I
Wow.
am always more than willing, and it's free for an agency to host TERT training, nothing out
I'm
of pocket.
sorry. What?
You heard me, free.
Oh,
They do not have to pay for anything. Everything is, I handle everything.
do you
We
see
need
my wheels, Gary? Do you see the
we need to get
wheels?
on this.
You guys listening won't be able to see the wheels, but there's like smoke coming out of my ears right now because.
And that's just for
Okay.
Texas. Sorry, if you're out of state, I'm sorry. It's just for Texas.
Oh, Well, you know,
But I
okay.
mean, if they're interested, if someone from out of state is listening and interested, they can email me and I can give them contact with who their TERT rep would be in their state to see what they're doing. Or if they don't have a TERT program, what information or guidance can be provided to get the process started. But I will
That would
say, if anyone's listening and you're in a state that had one or is trying to reestablish one, working with your emergency management coordinators and the state, whether it be DPS, emergency management, and get your state chapters of APCO and NINA involved as well, because having those key players as your support, I won't say will guarantee that we'll get your state program going again, but will demonstrate the need for it. And again, I'm truly blessed with what on the state side of things and with Texas APCO and Texas NINA, what they have done for us in the past and their support for this program.
That's
Mm.
amazing. One more time for anybody that is interested in applying, or if they wanted to reach out to TERT, what would the website be again?
It is tx-tert.org, and it has my contact information on there and everything that you need to know on how to become a Texas TERT member.
I'm so gonna go restock that site.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you
me
We
so
have,
too.
much again.
And
we have
Thank you so
other
much.
stories on there from all of our deployments as well. So you can read about,
Oh,
and each one has made history in some way, shape, and form. Uh, I will give a big shout out to the 2022 deployment to Hurricane Ian. It was the largest TERT deployment to date, as I think roughly 211 TERT members from 6 or 7 states deployed to assist Florida following Hurricane Ian.
that is amazing.
It's amazing.
Wow. That's good
Um,
work.
yes.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Jason, and talking about not only the North Texas Emergency District, but also TERT as well, because that's been an exciting sort of program to hear about. I know I'm interested, and it looks like Erica is a bit.
Oh,
So
I'm
yes,
coming out of my skin right now. So yeah.
Well, I hope
so
to see
yes.
applications from y'all soon.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes, and that's tx.tert.com.
Org.
.org. Yes, so tx.tert.org if you're interested in applying to be a TERT member. And from all of us at Lifeline 911, I'm Gary,
I'm Erica.
and we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching our production of Lifeline 911. If you have any questions about today's topic or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, please reach out to us at lifeline911podcast@gmail.com. This has been a production of Lifeline 911 Podcast, copyright 2025. From all of us at Lifeline, stay safe out there. And until next time, this is Lifeline 911 signing off.